Evening. We'll get the meeting started here. Have a roll call.
Weedman,
Here.
Mack,
Here.
Braden, absent, LaCroy,
Here.
Miller, here, Tamika Nash, here, and Strack.
Here. All right, we got a quorum. Pledge your allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Okay, need a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Second?
Miller, aye, Strack,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash. Aye.
Okay. Next is any public comments?
No one signed up.
Okay.
Is there any public comments out there?
Okay. Quickly moving on to board reports for the ISAB conference. I guess I can start off. So a couple of the classes I went to, one of them was on the pensions issues affecting Illinois. So a couple of the topics were discussed were the Social Security risk for Tier 2 teachers upon administration, and then the high-paid administrators and how that's all going to work together. There's also a class action lawsuit against TRS regarding overfunding of the Tier 2 pension, and still a possible district responsibility for salaries during a pension shift. So that's still not completely off the table. Legislative issues affecting school districts. The new state superintendent, Ayala, how do you say that? I spelled it right. I just didn't. Stated they reinstituted the basic skills test for teachers. They're trying to do things to address the substandard still. Reciprocity for out-of-state for sub-licenses. And forming a school construction task force. One of the questions that came up is if we were an entitled school district for construction in 2004. Basically, back then they had approved some building construction money to go towards schools back in 2004. While we had put in for it, we weren't entitled or basically awarded it. So that turns out we were still not going to get any money for, but at least we looked into it. And then the 2020 census, which I mentioned before in a previous meeting, support for state funding. There is a need for a complete count. And I believe we did bring it up at one of our BPAC nights to help our parents get in and use the computers to do their census. Board and superintendent relationships was another one I went to. Needs to be mutual trust and respect, which I think we all agree on. We all try and do that. The role of the board is not to get into the weeds, which we've had discussions on over before. The superintendent manages everything, we just govern. So some of the questions that came up with that for me was, do we have roles that are clearly defined, and do we have clear expectations defined? So those are things that we need to make sure that we have going forward. And the last one that I thought got us anywhere, that was worth even kind of talking about was the green initiatives. Christy and I both sat through that presentation. It was pretty good. We do have the presentation on a flash drive. So the questions are, how well are our District 46 buildings being as far as Energy Star? And if not, how do we get there? Should we partner with ComEd for an evaluation for energy efficiency? They had a booth at the downstairs in the vendor area that recommended that they could come out and do some evaluation for us, basically do a voluntary load response. So those are a couple things that we could look at, and then obviously continue to work on our green energy. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next, So I only attended on Saturday, so I didn't go to as many sessions, but one was regarding trends in collective bargaining, which wasn't exactly earth-shattering, I didn't think. Nothing that we weren't already doing and what we have been doing in the past. Another was a session where there were some state legislators talking about school finance, basically. And I had posed a question to the panel about what states, outlining the situation we're in with regard to the pension debt and evidence-based funding and all those different things, and asking them how they were going to, what their plan was to address these issues, and got mostly non-responses, particularly from one legislator from, I think this, you were in the session, from the, I think it was Southwest Suburbs, where he said, and I can't remember his name, Tom something, he said that he couldn't talk about it because it was confidential or something to that effect, which seems strange to me because they're legislators and this is all public record. So anyway, they didn't really answer the questions that they were being asked. The one thing that I did find beneficial in particular was a session on monitoring board performance. And I have something I'll give to Sue to copy to distribute to everyone. But it's, and of course IASP offers a service to help with this. But it's a process whereby we lay out a particular plan for how we're going to monitor our board policies and the goals that we set and whether or not we're meeting the goals that we are setting with regard to learning and just the state of the district and those sorts of things. So I think it's something we should definitely take a look at as far as something to do. And like I said, I'll give this to Sue to distribute to everybody.
All right, I can go. I too attended on Saturday principally. I wasn't there on Friday, but the three sessions that came to mind for me that were, I think I attended 5, but the 3 that were the top 3. One was on needs and numbers in equity. I believe I attended that one with Christy, and it talked about teaching the whole child with respect to our goals on equity and inclusion in the district. It tied it into family engagement and engagement into the community as a key to equity and support for families. And they spent a lot of time talking about how the district and the board, if they have diversity and equity efforts, can partner with the different stakeholders in the district, different ways in which they can do that. Specifically, the representatives on that panel were from the district and from the union, and so they had a very close relationship on equity issues. So it wasn't just a board initiative, but it was a joint union board initiative, which I found very interesting. And so that's the question I would have, is for us to consider what are those potential opportunities that we have for that as well. I attended a session on Twitter and boards using Twitter, specifically boards using Twitter, not necessarily the district, but the board using Twitter. And that was really interesting. And again, the biggest question that surrounded that session was what opportunities can you, as a governing board, use social media for, in addition to perhaps what you have for your district. And the biggest thing that came from that, which is something I've said before many times, is being able to share our story in a way that's relevant and in a way that's consumed by the public at large, much easier than other mediums. And it also talks about how you need to go slow on that. You should take, you should put a learning process in of 6 months, or at least it's a recommendation. Just sit back and watch other boards and then go in. And then the final one was I also attended a interest-based bargaining. It was not the one, I don't think it was the one that you were at, but it was one on negotiations and breaking the mold of big personalities. And it kind of echoes the question that Lynn put in our packet here. What opportunities we have for interest-based bargaining. But more importantly, too, it asks what's our culture and how does that culture impact you in negotiations. So those were my top 3. There was a couple other ones that were just kind of side ones that I went in and out of, but those were the good ones. Thank you.
Sure. So I attended just the basics for new school
board member on finance and superintendent, but I don't think that's anything that's new to most of you, so I'll skip that. And then the three that I liked a lot were the Illinois report card, the energy efficiency going green that Jim mentioned, and sustaining an education foundation. So rather than go by each one, I just kind of combined how I saw them fitting together. And the first, I'll piggyback, Stephen, on your comment about just creating and disseminating a narrative. The Illinois report card has a commentary section, do you know this already? Where we can add anecdotal information to explain things like the reduction of the cost of utilities through the solar panels, or anything that we want to share out. Our partnership with Foundation 46, our equity work, or any of the things that we've been working on for a while, as well as, and this would be a question for you, I've been on the board longer, but if we wanted, we've been paying down the debt from the construction in the 90s for a while, and it's been a steady 8-year process where the finances have been much more stable than prior. When you came in, it might be a way to share that narrative out into the community. The next thing relative to the narrative is, actually piggybacks what you were saying, Stephen, developing a monitoring system which allows us to track progress towards energy efficiency and utilities costs. Even, and I'll get to this later, but Mary and I just talked very briefly about some sort of wellness initiative in the Insurance Advisory Committee, so if that's something that we adopted through that might be worth highlighting in that Illinois report card. And then the green initiative was the other one I wanted to focus on because it impacts finances. I think I've already shared this, but Huntley their presentation was really good and reduced utility costs by 50%, which saved a lot of money. And when I was working on my paper earlier this year and worked a little bit with Kevin, he's doing a ton already. I don't know and I know one of your goals is to formalize the reporting process of that, but he's done quite a bit of stuff already that, again, would go to a wellness campaign if that's something we wanted to think about and talk about. That's it.
I attended a few. It sounds like we have some themes going between our respective workshops. One that was of particular interest was effective financial transparency. And one of the things that it challenged the group to think about is, what does your board demand in understanding your community engagement, and what needs are on the horizon? And it really talked about not assuming people understand, goes kind of to the point around telling our own narrative and leveraging social media. One of the highlights there was that you can get, small investment in social media can yield, really high increase in ROI just by making sure that we have clearly articulated where we are from a financial standpoint. Some districts that were there as panelists highlighted like financial dashboards that they have within their district website, and they actually push information out to the community. And then they also have like links to FAQs. So again, taking a step further, not assuming people understand the language, what's done, how operations flow. So that was really good. It also recommended that timelines are posted to help bolster community engagement. So it's not like you get to collective bargaining or you're negotiating big deals and it's up on the community like, this is a pot of money that we need to come up with in short order, taking them through the journey. So I thought that was really interesting. In the first general session, it talked about really being, well, the question was, what are you doing with difficult music that's already in front of you? And I don't know if you guys attended, but Kai Kite was the violinist, and it was a phenomenal speech that he did. And essentially, what he was cutting to was be very intentional about promoting inclusion in our community and turning policies and missions into acts that serve as a bridge between the board and the community. So really good talking about different things that give thought to in your district, like multicultural nights, for example, that could be hosted at a museum in your town. So think about Grayslake Museum. The art night, I know we do something similar to that. He said consider like the Harlem Renaissance Night and partner with the arts community around us to help bring the community out. but also highlight and showcase the diversity that exists within our community. I thought that was good. One of my favorites was e-learning for emergency days. And Gurney, one of the superintendents there, spoke to that, where essentially it was really challenging boards to change their mindset as to where education can happen. And so recognizing we're in the Midwest and we have more snow days potentially than, most parts of the country, they created these things called blizzard bags for students to, like K through 4 in special education that include supplemental learning materials on days when it's snow days, but then recognizing that we have our technology investment and now every kid has a Chromebook, how can we capitalize and make sure that we're continuing to learn even when I thought that was really good. The last one, the art of painless negotiation, I think the biggest takeaway there for me was about just instead of having the once event in terms of contract negotiations with the union, look at opportunities to engage maybe once or twice a year and just make it fun and sticky. So even if you're just going out to dinner with, the union representatives, but how do you start to build those relationships and it doesn't become this contentious environment where you really start to get to know one another. And I said that was the last one, but I lied. There's one more. This was super awesome, and it was my first time attending, so the timing was really awesome and well spent. This last one, which I think we may already be on the path to this partnership, it was during the carousel of panels, and I attended University and Schools Connect for Student Success. And this was talking about expand your vision as to who your partners can be in education. And specifically, it talked about, like, do you have local community colleges in your town you can partner with? So I thought about partnerships with CLC to help bring forward curriculum or content that our budget may not necessarily be able to support, but we can tap into that. I know our equity and inclusion
I feel like somebody has to acknowledge the fact that all of that learning took place a day and a half after you were seated at the board.
Right.
We can't just let that go by, so, okay.
Go right into the
Awesome.
pot.
Yeah.
Jason?
Yes, so I also attended only the Saturday sessions, and I was lucky enough to be this board's delegate at the delegate convention, which ran long. I believe I reported out on the delegate convention in the December meeting, and so I don't really have anything else to add to that report.
So we got a present today, but we got a package today from the village of Grayslake. Is a mounted proclamation celebrating the village's 125th anniversary. I'll just read the letter that we got with it. It says Grayslake was incorporated in 1895, so we will be marking the village's 125th anniversary in 2020. I am proud to present to District 46 the enclosed frame Celebrate Grayslake 125 proclamation passed by the village board. In keeping with our efforts to spread the word about this year's celebration, I would request that you post this proclamation in a prominent place. As the Celebrate Grayslake 125 progresses, the village looks forward to the participation of District 46 in commemorating the village history. It's signed by Mayor Taylor. A nice little plaque, so I thought maybe if we just make it kind of do like a round robin through the schools, maybe if we can
Sure.
find a spot to post it for maybe a couple weeks each month
Sure.
or a month at a time, and that way it makes its way through the village.
We will take care of that. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else got anything else to report besides the conference
I
notes?
mean, we can have a few administrators who can talk about the conference if you.
Oh, sure.
A lot of it, it's pretty similar to a lot of the things that I think we've heard you all talk about. I can share information about a couple of workshops that I attended. One of them was actually a pre-conference workshop that wasn't exactly a part of III, but was kind of happening there at the same time. I was a part of a Women in Leadership workshop. And so the focus of that was really about intentionality and the concept that, we send messages with everything that we say and everything that we do, and so we need to be very careful and intentional that we are sending the messages that we mean to be sending. And we also talked a lot about the fact that leadership is not about title, it's your influence on the world. And so again, it's a place where your life is your actual message. The way you do things is your message and not your title. So that was something I appreciated. And just like I heard a lot of other people talk about, I was at least one bargaining session meeting. And just like we heard a lot of other people talk about, I am wondering, is there an appetite in our school district to be considering interest-based bargaining? Is there an appetite for the board? Is there an appetite on behalf of the unions as we move into our next bargain? But either way, one of the messages that I came away with was, even if you're not officially doing interest-based bargaining, you still want to come to the philosophy of bargaining on interests. So even if you don't go through that whole process of training, that is worthwhile for everyone to be very clear about what their interests are and how do we work together to meet all interests through a bargaining process. Well, I know you had a few things to share.
Yeah, so one of them I went to was the same one that also was talked about the legislative updates. The interesting thing, it was the week that all the information that came out at the state level about the appropriate use of seclusion rooms and such. And so the state superintendent was very passionate and very emotional about how that was an important thing that the state board was working on. So it was interesting timing for her in that it was that same week that happened. And so she addressed it immediately. Really her first thing she talked about. The one I did want to talk about was one session called Celebrate Diversity, Culturally Responsive Communications. And so I think that's something we'll want to continue to look at, and how to best communicate with all of our families in multiple languages and with different expectations about school communications. So I think there's some things. Most of the districts who were presenting were very large with significant support for bilingual education, for example. So each of them talked about each building liaison and how they're helping just the families in their building. And then they work together with the other building liaisons for a district-wide team. We have one that we're thrilled about, but it was a different kind of a setting. For those. One that I loved, one of the ideas that they talked about was that right now, and Dr. Diaz, it's up to 54 languages that we have in our school district, and they wanted to promote that. So each of their districts found some way, and one that I loved is they had loved our languages as one of their symbols. And so they would name all the languages that were on t-shirts or on posters or in the school. But the one that I loved is outside of each classroom, they put love our languages, and they indicated all the languages represented in that classroom. And so that it would make kids feel welcome and interesting. And so I think those are things that we could do easily to start the school year, to start those. So those little ideas I think are helpful to keep pushing the message about how important it is that it's an asset and not a deficit, all those kind of things. And so I want to keep promoting those things. So those were good reminders to continue to do. Even small things make a difference.
Chris, you had some things to share? Sure thing.
You know, we probably should do it. Probably should. just
Yeah, we need a
bring our
mic back there.
Couple mics back there.
Yeah,
We have more or not.
I think we might.
All right. So my workshops, I think there were multiples that we may have crossed over, or many themes that ran throughout the conference. One that I attended was titled, "Don't They Just Need More English?" It was the journey that 4 different school districts are on through their language services and how they're addressing diversity. Throughout that one, I was very proud of our district Stephanie Diaz, and Avon Center School, in that we are, of those 3 districts, I would say we were number 2, or those 4 districts, we were right behind number 1 in how progressive we are. Number 1 being Naperville. And so different set of needs. Pension caps, salary buyouts and budgets, pretty standard, focusing mostly on the 6% salary or pension cap. Building culture through bargaining. Work together early and often. Talk about issues before you get to the bargaining table. And then teacher shortage and are we making progress? And that was held in a room smaller than a closet. And it was packed to the gills, so I stood outside the door and was able to catch most of it. But it was state legislators saying, "Oh, we're trying." So there were no real answers to address that in the way of action items that Springfield can take.
All right, we're up to your superintendent report.
Indeed. So since our last Board of Ed meeting, I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of fantastic school events that I want to just highlight. I was able to go over to Park for their band and choir concert and must comment on the choral arrangements that were unbelievable for these, I want to say they were 5th graders who were singing, and they were fantastic. And then the band, listening to a beginning band, and then the band that had just 1 year under their belt, and the difference was just really remarkable. So that was really fun. And then just a week later, I was over at Woodview for the lip sync event, which was packed to the gills, as you yourself said, Chris. Kids performing, every kid who wanted to had an opportunity to perform. There was a a teacher group at the beginning. There was a teacher and principal group at the end. But I have to comment that the highlight for me was the bus driver number. So just the fact that we have bus drivers who are not our employees, right? This is a contracted service that choose to give up their Friday night to come to one of our schools. They choose to give up their own time to rehearse because they had rehearsed for sure, and come and perform. To me, it really says something very special about our community. So I needed to share that with you. Very moved, and I did tweet about it. Stephen, just so you know. I think you saw it. Okay. Speaking of community partners, as we were before, I want to highlight a program we have coming up with the library, Grayslake Public Library. We have the Jazz and Friends event coming up on February 27th. This is it's a nationwide event that will be occurring on the National Day of School and Community Readings in support of transgender and non-binary youth. And there will be readings of the book I Am Jazz, which maybe people have heard a little bit about, a television show that used to be available, and a number of other books as well that really celebrate people being comfortable in their own skins. We'll put it that way. And so it's something that our school district is partnering with the library on. GMS has a Pride Club, and those students have been helping with this program. I'm going to be a reader. I'm excited about that. There will be snacks and treats, and it's from 6:30 to 7:30. There'll be a reading at 6:30. Oh, there's a reading at 6:30 and a reading at 7:30. So I think it will continue on, and you're welcome to come. So wanted to share that event. And a less fun topic is that, as you probably all heard, we did not get the property tax relief grant. That wasn't a surprise to us. It is what we thought would happen, but you never know. It was worth a college try. There were 233 districts that applied. And just kind of as a point of clarification, the way this works is that each school district is ranked and eligible related to where they are in their own grouping. So elementary districts have their own grouping, high school districts have a grouping, unit districts have a grouping, and then there's a ranking that happens within that. Those that have the highest tax rates in their grouping rise to the top. And so there were 39 grants awarded. High school district 127 was number 39. So they did get that relief grant as they did last year. We were number 71 and did not get the grant. So any questions about that? I think you probably all maybe even read about it. Okay, so again, talking about partnerships, I'm gonna hand it over to Paul, who's gonna share information about our CLC partnership, and has another piece of information to share as well.
So a couple things about partnerships, which is exciting. A group of us have been working with the College of Lake County to consider a partnership experience. And so we had our second meeting of the year on January 30th, so just last week. A group of us from District 46 and then a good number of staff from CLC were able to come to our office and talk about it. We have lots of ideas, and the thing that I love is that the ideas are moving to action quickly. And so I'm very excited to share some of those things and give you a preview of what we're hoping in the future. So one of them we talked about student connections. So being able to connect their students with our students, or their students with us through volunteer experiences, or their experiences with languages that they speak with students in our district with the same language. Mentoring opportunities for students there to be able to mentor some of our students as well. So we're excited about that opportunity with being so close. They also talked about some possibilities of some business office internships. They have a business programming, and they are actively interested in being able to, for us to provide opportunities for their students to get real life experiences. So I know that the business office was interested in some summer help or some throughout the semesters help, but that's just an exciting opportunity, either paid or unpaid, and potentially when it's paid by them. And so we like that. We like those ideas as well. So I think that's a plan to start looking at that as soon as we're able to decide where we could use the help, but they were interested in that. Again, about mentoring, and then also about athletic teams. So to connect some of their athletic teams with our athletic teams, or their athletic director with our teams, to be able to come and talk with teams or to participate, bring some of our teams to their facilities, have co-practices so that our students would be able to practice with college-age students, or to participate. I think those are pretty cool experiences for kids to see an adult, more of an adult take an active role in their sports as well. But I know most middle school kids would think it was cool to go to a college campus and maybe use some of their facilities or get some coaching by somebody else. There were other opportunities that we talked about, us being able to potentially use their space. And so potentially for music programs or artistic programs, we would be able to use their space. We might be able to use, they talked about us potentially having a partnership with the band program at the college to do maybe some guest conducting or some guest clinics for our students, so those would be great. We also said that we would be glad to support sharing information about cultural events. The college has a full calendar of experiences that some of our families may not be fully aware. We also talked about college readiness experiences. And so, for example, many of our 7th grade students have in the past gone to a college campus to experience what that would be like and what college looks like, it feels like, all those things. We're already looking at dates for next year to schedule our students to go and spend some time at the college and experience what that would be like. I think those are all amazing experiences for our students to talk about. One that I was very excited about was the idea that the College of Lake County has a very strong equity and inclusion committee. As a member of that committee, we talked about potentially bringing our committees together, doing some shared professional development, or just sharing about ideas that they're working on and ideas that we're working on. I shared some of ours, and they already offered some potential support with some projects coming up that we're interested in pursuing with the Equity and Equity Committee. We talked at length, I'm looking at Dr. Diaz, about being able to offer some support for our BPAC. And so I think it's already in the works that they're going to be attending one of the upcoming BPACs. And then potentially next year we'll be going there for one of the BPAC meetings. They have a lot of opportunities for free opportunities for parents who might own a small business. And so they have a small business planning office that is bilingual, so they would be able to help many of our Spanish-speaking families and all families who have small businesses. So I was just really excited that day. And when I said we're already taking some action, one of the things is they have a volunteer fair this coming week. Next week. And Marcus Smith, the principal of GMS, already signed up for a table, and our district is going to be represented there to just gather names of people who might be interested in different capacities to support things like Science Olympiad, or about mentoring, or about reading with students, all kinds of things. So I'm excited about the opportunity. They, one of the things they're hoping, and I'm hoping, that we would be able to bring a resolution back to this board to express our partnership in agreement. And they said that there were some benefits for that, if that we had a firm partnership. Then, for example, if we went there wouldn't be any fees for us using their facilities. If we wanted some staff to come and help us, there wouldn't be any fees for that because they were working on with a partnership with us. And so they did say that we might be the first elementary district to actually have a partnership. They have not been able to find yet an example across the country of an elementary district with a partnership with a community college. They have lots of partnerships with unit districts. They have lots of partnerships with high school districts, but they haven't been able to yet find an example of an elementary district. So that's exciting as well.
We'd like to be that example.
Yeah.
We have a long list of other ideas about professional development for teachers, about spaces, about volunteers, all kinds of things that we could continue to work on. We did mention that it probably would fit under community engagement as a component or a subset. So with hopefully nods, I volunteered to help work on a resolution. I saw a lot of you nodding that this sounds like a positive thing for us to come back in April. And what we would like is that our board meetings are one night apart. So some of us would go to their board meeting one night, and they would vote on a resolution, and then the next night we would hopefully vote on the resolution as well. So I just wanted to prep that was something coming. Did I miss?
Well, I just wanted to mention, none of these ideas, I don't think you missed any ideas. No, but I just wanted to mention that this was born out of the CLC's new strategic plan. So they wrote this into their plan that they needed to reach out and make a partnership with an elementary district. And so we're the beneficiaries of that. I see only benefit to us. I just think it's an unbelievable opportunity, but I am curious to know if there are any board members who have questions about this or any areas where you think we should be cautious as we proceed.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it sounds phenomenal. And I would just expect that some people will be concerned about some with college-age kids or other CLC staff, so just something to
So
think about.
that was already discussed at the meeting,
Okay,
and
yep.
so the students already know that they have to have a background check. And so Mr. Walk was in attendance in the meeting, and so he was checking off some boxes about the things that we'd have to be worried about as well. And so, those were really positive. It was a great day. I was very excited.
Would this include, if we had the partnership in place, would it also include access to like their science and technology labs and things like that?
So they've said they'd be glad for field trips and borrowing of equipment and borrowing of staff. I was thinking, I know Mr. Meskel, our former board member, used to go and get some things on his own over there, but I think that there's some opportunities of just their level to be able to expose some of our kids to, or all of our kids as we can, to some of the great things that they have. And if you haven't been there in a while, it is an amazing place. I'm a graduate of there, and it's hard to even picture what it looked like years ago. But it is a really cool, amazing, well thought out, beautiful building. Building.
If I'm not mistaken, Paul, I think Baxter sponsored their technology center, so they have a whole new technology wing. And I think the sign up to have like group field trips is like a year out. My daughter's in a STEM program, and her group was able to go, and you just sign up. But the list is pretty long. It's pretty awesome. With the
It is,
partners
it
and-
is nice, the people who they brought. We've met with multiple vice presidents, we've met with the president, we've met with multiple division heads over the time. So, and she, the one vice president just said, well, call me and we'll get it done. So I love that idea. So I think that's a really amazing thing that we're working on. So I said that there were partnerships, and so I wanted to also share that today was Late Start, and we are expanding our partnerships. So today, for example, we had a member of the high school staff come and work with our math teachers. We had identified some topics in our math curriculum and math instructional practices that were needing some support. And when it was shared at the math articulation at the high school, the presenter there, one of the teachers there said, well, I can help with that. And so today he came, presented about probability and statistics and the use of the graphing calculator in those concepts. And so our feedback was that it was very good, and Mr. Eichen did a wonderful job, but it was a little heavy-duty math at 7:40 a.m. That he jumped right in quickly and got them going on probability statistics and graphing calculator. And so they said it with a smile that it was intense math. And so I was happy about that. And then at Late Start today, we also had members of the Equity and Inclusion Committee meeting with info specialists about a program that we're working on to infuse our libraries with more resources to support LGBTQ. And so members of the committee came and met with the team and shared how we were going to be able to move forward with getting some additional books into our library. So they were very happy about the idea that there was some more funds coming, and specifically in that area. So it's just pretty cool when we can start doing those kind of things on Late Start days as well. And then I also wanted to share, because I'm very proud, this past Saturday, there was a conference at the Regional Office of Education. It was their first conference, and it was called the Ditched Con. So you probably wondered what that could possibly mean. Ditched Con, so it stands for Dynamic Instructional and Technology Coaches Are Hooked on Education Conference.
Can you say that again?
There'll be a quiz. And so I wanted to share that it was on a Saturday from 8:30 to 1:30, and we had a good number of staff attending on their own for that. But what I was very excited is that they had 20 presenters as part of the conference, and 5 of them were from District 46. So I'm very proud to say that we had a very high percentage of presenters, and their sessions were great. And so the next day, or on Monday, I got an email immediately thanking the district for our wonderful presenters and their time and their effort and how much they made a big difference at the conference. So I do want to share that those were Linda Mizwicki and Amy Schneider and Tammy Singer and Laura Golden and Kristen Innes were the 5 people who represented District 46 at the conference this weekend. So I think it's just awesome that our staff are out there sharing the good work that's going on in our district. I love that idea.
All right.
I
Oh,
have a
yes,
question. I'm a
yes.
little slow tonight, but on the CLC partnership, the question was posed, any trepidations or any concerns about that. So as I think about the partnership, you enumerated a bunch of ways that it's beneficial to us. What is it that CLC gets out of that partnership? And I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just wondering, as you think about what could be problematic, it'd be interesting to know what they're getting out of it.
Well, I mean, so I'll start with, again, it was built out of their strategic plan. So they're recognizing their need to be community partners. So I think that's a big piece of it. Not stated in the meetings, but I would assume that it makes sense that for them to have younger students seeing the value of coming to a community college is very valuable to them. So I would think that would be a piece of it. Is there anything else that you can share?
They've very clearly said that their mission is to promote college and career readiness for our community. And so the College of Lake County takes lots of communities in, and their mission is to help with college and career. That's why they don't want to just focus on the idea that maybe they'll be future students, but there are free opportunities, there are cultural opportunities. They would like to be more of a hub. They would like to be a place where people know they can go and get support. So I think it's good intentioned about all of those positive kind of things. Of course, they would like us to maybe do some communication, and I'm okay with communicating when the ballet group is coming or the certain opportunities that our families may not know about.
And we've
they
already
have
advertised that. They've sent us flyers that we sent out to our community. So yes.
And so part of that is there too.
They also talk about their students and staff, some of their clubs, they need volunteer hours. So this gives them an opportunity, some of their staff members to come over and help work with our staff as a volunteer. Or their clubs need to volunteer so many hours in order to participate within the university.
And when you talk about, having a business internship, for example, in our business office, they have students who need business internships. So there's that piece as well.
We already have an internship with the nursing program.
We host their nursing interns, and we also host several of their students who need some observation hours for classroom for introduction to education.
I think as we go down the path, there's more things that we can consider about that. For example, they're able to provide the courses needed for a teacher to get their EL endorsement. And so those would be really helpful for some of our teachers who might benefit from getting their EL endorsement. And so those would be great. And so there's lots of those kind of opportunities. The EL department is very strong there, and so we might be able to have some additional PD with them as well for staff. So I didn't hear any alternative motives except that they wanted to broaden their community circle. They have a very strong high school alliance. So she rattled off the number of high schools that they're already connected with to be a resource to the high school districts. But again, this would be the first time with this age group.
That was helpful, thank you.
They do have that. She did talk about the early childhood program and such, so. Couldn't hurt to ask, those kind of.
Just in a teacher shortage, we might want to make it a really good breakfast for kids, especially maybe making it
Yeah.
Tamika, I just heard you say about summer camps, that, one of the directors of all of their community programming was there. She did say that they have a brand-new course in adult education. It's all about a course that helps you track your genealogy. And so that could be very interesting for many families, many individuals to think about those things. So she came with all kinds of resources to share with us.
Okay. And Heather, you have a few words for us about last night's family parent university, yes?
Yes, I do. I'm so excited to share that we had Dr. David Walsh, who is well respected in the psychological world, published author, national, international speaker on parenting and everything related to child rearing. He came last night to speak at our family university, our second annual one, and it was here last night. We had about just around 60 parents that came, and we yielded 100% satisfaction results out of the presentation. So we are very excited about our outcomes, and I feel like we're really starting to meet our community needs. The topic last night was specific to setting limits and avoiding power struggles with our children. I even was reminded what I need to do with my own children. And we offer child care services for children who are potty trained. And our team of our mental health committee in our district put a lot of volunteer hours in really tying together a nice solid program for the students or the children and our families. We were able to videotape it, so we're excited that we can get that up on our website. It'll be under the parent and student link. Along the left-hand column, there is a family university link, and that'll be up in the next days or so. Thank you.
All right, that was it for the superintendent's report. I know.
Just your superintendent's report?
That was it.
All right, next is committee reports. The first one is the Community Engagement Committee.
So I mentioned last time Lynn and I met and talked about the relationship between the strategic planning process and the community engagement plan, and I got clearer, I think we both did, on who's doing what. And so that led to the conversation Stephen and I had. The primary question on my mind now is so you have the balcony and the dance floor metaphor, which says governance and administration. So when we're on the balcony, what are we doing? And what are our roles, which I think goes back to someone else said something about roles. So that's good to be thinking about. And then Stephen, you had brought up the monitoring calendar, and I had that also printed out. And when I looked at where our district goals are, I think Stephen has mentioned this too, we have one that says we're the board community partnership committee. So I wanted to kind of think about that in terms of the strategic planning process. Do we want to do something in the time before we go into the actual strategic planning event so that we have a little more clarity on what our vision for the district is? What should those be? Are we meeting with other boards? What do we want to do with that? And that would be helpful for me to stay off the dance floor and for us to stay off separate.
That's good. I don't have anything there.
Okay, Equity and Inclusion Committee.
So that's me. I was asked to talk about this. We had an Equity and Inclusion Committee on January 22nd. It's one of my favorite meetings of the month, so I'm always glad for that. I will, with a smile, share that one of our topics was that Dr. Glickman did her book report. She shared one of the books that she's been reading and gave a good synopsis and a book talk to encourage others to read the book. It was called Tears We Cannot Stop, A Sermon to White America. And so I think everyone was intrigued by it, and I know she has it ready to borrow for anyone who's interested in that.
And a diorama, if you want, to go with the book report.
We've had some small groups of people working on things for the committee about our sticker contests and the books that I just spoke about for the increase of the LGBTQ plus resources in the libraries, the I Am Jazz and Jazz and Friends event. And so we had lots of discussions about how all those tasks were going. And then I'm just going to tease a little bit. We're working on a new project called One District, One Book. And so hopefully you'll be hearing about that soon. But it's a pretty exciting, cool way to get into every classroom across the district with a shared reading of a book about a topic yet to be determined.
But related to equity and inclusion.
Related to about equity, that we'd be able to share then at home. The exciting part is that the Grayslake Library is interested in connecting with us, which is really cool, and now the College of Lake County may be interested in helping us with it as well. So
In a funding kind of way.
maybe. Hopefully. So all those kind of things have been really great. We have homework for the next meeting, and everyone's coming with some ideas about the One District, One Book project moving forward. So lots of good stuff.
Okay. Next, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda with the, also the personnel addendum that we got on your desk this morning, or this evening.
So moved?
Second.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye. All right, now we're up to action items. The first is a motion to approve the authorization for Wold Architects to issue a bid for roof replacement at Meadowview and Park Campus.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? We have
Yeah,
Keith.
yeah. Keith, do you want to say a few words about this matter?
Any question? I guess would be the first start.
Is it the-
But I will explain, it's just a repair at Park, it is not a replacement. And we'll add that, there's a repair from the mezzanine area that needs it's rippling. It isn't leaking, but it's rippling, so we're gonna get it fixed before we do have an issue. But other than that, I feel comfortable with them. I mean, they did an excellent job at the middle school 2 years ago. So, I think it's a good deal.
Do you mind grabbing a microphone?
Okay.
I just wanted to add that at last month's meeting, or the last meeting, brought you information about the maintenance grant. And so you may remember that the maintenance grant, we have to apply the funding that we would get from the state through that grant towards a project that we're already planning to do. So this is that perfect project. We're already planning to replace Meadowview's roof. So we're hopeful to get that grant and would be using those funds as part of how we would fund this project. But also keep in mind, we have been setting funds aside for this project for quite some time.
With the roof at Meadowview, is that going to be set up and ready to go if we put solar panels on it at a later date?
That is the plan. I've hem-hawed because they did do it on this building with architectural shingles. I've been trying to reach out a little bit to find out how much easier it would be to do with the 3-tabs versus these shingles, which are a little bit better shingle than the 3-tab. But so far, everything I'm coming back with is, I believe it would be faster to do it with the 3-tab than it would be where they did it on this roof.
But we would be positioned to be able to add
Correct.
solar panels
Yes.
nonetheless.
Without a-
We'd
without
be
a
sitting in
big
the
issue.
position to add them in the next year or so, because I don't know how far out you want to get before the roof starts to age. Because there is an age limit before they want to put the panels up on shingles.
Right, and will it have, the other thing that I would have a question for would be how will adding the solar panels on in the future work for the warranty of the roof? I know they were nice enough to work with us on this roof.
Right. That
Putting
would be a
that
good
on-
question. I can ask Wald that, how that would work. You know, like if we waited a year and a half or 2 years, you mean to put them on?
Right,
Yeah, I can ask,
because,
definitely.
you know, we don't want to, I mean.
Yeah, we don't want to void our
We're putting a
warranty.
30-year roof on, and void that warranty within 2 years would be, you know, disastrous on our part, I think.
Right, okay, I can ask them that, definitely.
Will it also transition with the French during?
As far as,
I don't know the mechanics of it, but
I mean, we're not putting any gutters back there, so yeah, the French drain will continue to do the good job that it's doing.
I just would hate for the kids to see.
Yeah,
it.
no,
No, good question.
yeah, it takes pretty good sized gutters for that portion of the road.
Any other questions? Roll call, or,
Weedman,
aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve the business office services agreement.
Second.
Share a little information about that. So, as you know, Mr. Herron has been out on leave for several weeks, and during that time, we have had Mrs. Mary Worling helping us in our business office. Mary, can you give a wave? That's Mary. A few of you have already had a chance to meet Mary. I know Jim did and Christy did, because Mary came in to help me out already in facilitating the insurance advisory committee, and Christy sitting on that committee. So the business service agreement allows us to do a few things. It's written in a pretty flexible way. It allows us to have Mary continue as an interim CSBO while John is out. At this time, I do not know how long John will be out, so it allows us to have Mary kind of as a per diem to keep our business office supported. And as well, you know, regardless of the length of time that John would be out, I'd like to comment that Mary has really helped us gain some very nice ground in our business office. And I'd like to see that momentum continue, particularly knowing that we are definitely transitioning into a new year next year with John's resignation as he moves into another school district. And so even if we don't have a need to have Mary in an interim position for a longer period of time, I would like for her to be able to support our business office perhaps about once a week from now until, or from whenever John came back until the end of the school year, to again keep that momentum going and, you know, really provide the support that the business office needs. So the way that this business service agreement is written is kind of gives us that flexibility. She can work for us pretty regularly for a while, or kind of once a week, you know, for a while as well. Any questions about that? I will share with you, because I know you're aware that Mary has already been spending a lot of time in our business office, and I cannot tell you how many people have commented to me how grateful they are to be working with her. You will see people on that side of the room nodding their heads. They've been working with her. The business office is grateful to her. We're just really gaining some nice momentum under Mary's leadership. So I'm grateful for that.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Okay, next is a motion to approve Barbara Zares as the principal of Avon School. Barbara's been functioning in the interim position, and we're happy to be able to remove that interim tag. We've heard a lot of reporting out from Dr. Lichtman about the positive things she's doing there, and to take the interim tag away.
Yes, and I want to add that several staff members from Avon really wanted to come tonight. Barbara, because she doesn't like being in the spotlight, even though I'm giving it to her right now, told them, no, you don't need to come. And they said, well, then we're going to watch online. So we're just going to give them a wave. Yes, Barbara has the vote of confidence of really the entire school and all of our administrators. She's just doing a wonderful job.
We'll make a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Strack,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye. Congratulations.
After that, you know you have to come back to work tomorrow, so if you'd like to go, we understand. Just so you know.
All right, next is unfinished business. Nothing there. So we're gonna skip right to new business, which is a discussion regarding the registration fees for 2021.
And I am going to invite Mrs. Married up, to talk with us a little bit about recommendations regarding those registration fees for next school year.
Thank you, and good evening. Thank you for your warm welcome, and Dr. Glickman, thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate it. The topic before the board for discussion tonight is student registration fees for the upcoming school year. To review, last year, the Board of Education authorized an increase of 2 fees, one being the kindergarten fee, as well as the registration fees for 3rd through 8th grade. The increase in the kindergarten fee was $20, and that was triggered by a comparison to our fees as compared to other local school districts. And it was through that the determination was made that a $20 increase would be appropriate. As for the 3rd to 8th grade increase, that was driven by the rollout of the Chromebooks, the one-to-one device program. And so that $50 technology fee was added for the 3rd through 8th grade registration fees. For discussion tonight before the board is the administration's recommendation to maintain the fee structure that exists this current year for next school year. So the administration is proposing no increase, no changes to fees for next year.
Discussion, questions? Okay. Okay, next is topics for future agenda items.
I got a list.
Okay,
Okay,
I only have one request.
okay.
For next board meeting, if we can
Yes.
keep it to a bare minimum of what we need to do, because we will, as a board, will need to go into executive session to do your evaluation.
Okay.
So that's,
You can get through that really quick.
well, maybe. Might be a little more difficult.
I really didn't like how you said that. I said that to you.
We really need all
Okay.
night to talk about it. We got this, it's gonna be all night.
All
So if we
right.
just keep it as short as possible so that we can use the time in the executive session.
Certainly. Well, certainly we have significant control over how much talking we do in the superintendent's report. So that can be that long or gone entirely. So one thing we must do at the next board meeting is the audit presentation. So we have scheduled Sheridan Jurgensen, am I saying it correctly? All right, one of our Eder Casella and company partners who will come and present the audit. That should be a pretty short presentation. I have discussed so we can take this off the table, but I have to communicate this to you in some way, I think, ahead of CEDAW. So as you already probably know, CEDAW is bringing forth a revised Articles of Joint Agreement. This is related to changes in funding and how funds were going directly to co-ops and now are going directly to school districts. And so what do we do about that? Quite a while ago, or it was about a month ago, I went to a meeting over at CEDAW, a bunch of superintendents going to learn about that. We were asked to share that information with our boards so that you would get that information about what that change would be like. I had talked with Val Donnan, the superintendent over at CEDAW, about her coming in and sharing that information with you. I thought it might be nice for you to actually have a chance to interact with her and see her. If we're looking for a shorter meeting, kind of an alternate plan that I can think of is, I have a PowerPoint already for CEDAW, from CEDAW. I can share it with you all electronically so you can see that. She'd asked that we share this information by the end of February because CEDAW needs to vote on those joint agreements at their board meeting, which is happening in February. I can share that with you. You can see if you have any questions and we can get them answered. And then I can just invite, if you like the idea of having Val come and speak to you, I can invite her at another time where she can talk about kind of a more generalized, here's what's up at CEDAW, if you like. So what are your thoughts about that? I wasn't asking her to come because it felt like, hey, this is a real specific thing that you need to know about. but we can put that part off.
I think we need to have a broader discussion about CEDAW prior to signing any revised. Just based on recent events and everything else. I think it warrants a wider discussion than just the agreement.
Okay.
It might just, if no one else wants to do
Yeah.
that, then that's fine, but.
So, there's a lot of, so we should have that conversation, and I think you've expressed already you'd like to bring that to this table. I think we would, and Heather, I don't know if you can chime in at all about the timing of when we would actually have to sign that agreement. Do you have that knowledge? Because I don't off the top of my head.
What I can, whoa. What I can share is that we've already sent our contracts for our purchase services that we do specific to our private placement team that works with us, and our assistive tech team that does our evaluations internally with us. But as a member district, we have it's a very long, lengthy process that we have to undergo with ISB to pull out of CEDAW. So
Is that regardless?
there's a lot of red tape that we have to go through before we can determine that we will no longer be a member district or utilize their services under the agreement that we already have with them.
And that's regardless of any potential adverse impact or past adverse impact that we might
I
have experienced?
don't know legally if we have recourse related to that, but I do know it's an extensive process, which includes going downstate.
Yeah, I know,
It's a process, so. And they have denied districts before if they didn't sell the story well enough. So.
The joint thing that we're gonna bring us for next meeting, that's something that needs to be voted on by the end of the month, or voted on, is there a timeframe that it has to be agreed to?
So, my understanding is that we are to look at it just to see if we have any questions. We're not bringing it to a vote here. It's, their board has to approve the changes in their draft, because it's really their draft. And then it comes back to us as something to sign. So I don't think that your decision about whether you're going to read a draft, read a PowerPoint, or have her come is going to change that flow at all.
Okay.
So back to that question, I think, do you want me just to send something to you so you can read it, and perhaps we'll have Val come another time, or do you want her to come in 2 weeks?
It might be beneficial to have us look at the presentation and absorb it and come up with questions and then have her come.
You still want her to come in February? You want her to come in February or the beginning of March? March?
Okay, March it is, absolutely. Okay, we potentially will have results from our garbage bid, right? We think, we might, we'll see, potentially, okay. I think we'd be bringing student fees back to you as an action item, correct? Yeah. We also will bring, we didn't include any early childhood fees on the student fees, so we need to do that as well, so we'll bring that to you as a discussion item next time, and that can be action following. We'll have the first draft of the calendar. Calendar committee is meeting tomorrow, and so we'll have a first draft for you to look at of the 2020, what are we at? 2021 calendar. And then the policy committee is meeting at 5:30 next time, and so we'll have first reading of policies.
Two things that I would like to see at some point in the near future, not necessarily next meeting. One would be a kind of a report out of our EBF funds that we received this year and what the plan was. We had the stakeholders meeting that we all participated in, and what the overall plan is, what to do with those funds. And then this would probably be more of a very long-term discussion, is trying to find a way to put this. get some parent involvement in some sort of a student booster program, not necessarily a PTO program, but a student booster program to help with, help with the theater program and the sports programs, try and bring in some money for, just outside sources besides tax money, but bring in some outside sources for, uniforms or displays or theater props or whatever the case may be, something that there's a general fund that could be done with that, either through, some sort of fundraiser for boosters or concession stands or something like that. I had a fairly long talk with one of the ADs a couple weeks ago regarding some of that issue, and there's not really a parent booster club, booster program to help with those things.
So are you looking for a proposal as to what that would look like?
At least a discussion or a proposal, maybe. I'm not sure exactly how far or what we can do to try and move that along. So I guess as a discussion wise,
So,
maybe it might be something that is discussed with building, the building principals of how to try and help. those things.
okay, so tell me if I have this right. I think what you're asking for is a board discussion that potentially would result in direction from the board for us to investigate this topic. Is that what we're looking for? Since that's typically what we're doing, right? We have if a board member has an interest, then we discuss it as a board, and then you direct us if we're going to be researching something?
Yeah, I just see some of the after-school programs struggling to,
Mm-hmm.
have funds to do the things that
We'll figure out what that looks like at a board meeting then. Okay. But we're not looking at those for next time.
No, it's probably a
Make it
long term.
longer, not shorter.
Well, it's probably a long term.
You guys have to have that difficult
discussion.
conversation about your superintendent. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I have, so I'm on this insurance advisory committee, and I wanted to bring that up as a broader topic of committee engagement specifically. As I understand it, my role, I'm interested in what the precedent is, which is you're on the finance committee, so we are gonna, this committee will bring 3 options to our board in April to choose from. And it seems uncomfortable to me, or at least not without discussion, to be part of the decision about which options to bring, and then I vote on which one will accept. So I don't know if there's precedent for that in other committees, but it would be helpful for me to know, am I just a liaison on this committee, or am I actually, I don't even know how we're making a decision on which 3, but what's the decision-making protocol? What has it been in the past in other committees? That, and then as I'm on that committee and I'm trying to serve well, what decision-making framework are we gonna use? Are we, in order to decide which of the 3 options? Are we going to, as a board, say we're gonna try to give the most good to the most people, understanding that then the same few people that feel like they may not have been served well will continue to not be served well, if that makes sense? Or are we gonna use a different framework this time around? So just, I would like some conversation about that.
Can I jump in before the board deliberates on this? I'm thinking, as I'm listening to you talk about options, I think that the place that you're thinking about is we've talked about how there are various options that we provide for our staff, which we will likely continue to provide various options for our staff. I don't envision that we will be bringing the board a menu of things for the board to deliberate on. I think we'll be bringing to the board a recommendation from the insurance committee that says, we are proposing these options to be available to our staff. So I don't think that the board is gonna be in the position that you're concerned that the board is gonna be in.
We're not gonna.
Yeah, Mary, do you wanna jump in on this? 'Cause,
Well, of course, I don't have the history in the district. So
me
I'm
neither, it
just-
works out.
However, what Dr. Glickman has described is what I had imagined and predicted that this insurance committee would bring to the board and how the board would respond to that recommendation.
So I don't think the board is going to be in that position of needing to deeply dive into which of these things do we want to choose, because I think we're going to be saying, we've done this research, this is what we're recommending, and here's why.
Okay,
That makes more sense.
that does make more sense. And then we're doing that on April 29th. And my other question for our board was, and for you also, and I don't need an answer right now, I just wanted to bring it up for future, is that an artificial timeline? Because my understanding is that we were wanting these options for the next contract, not for the next opening level. And so I wanted to check your recollection for that too. And again, I don't need an answer right now, and bringing it up so that everyone has time to think about it.
So I believed that the direction from the board was for us to be able to have a insurance plan that benefited both the board and the staff in a heightened way as quickly as possible and as soon as the next open enrollment, and that we were not waiting for the next contract. We were moving towards open enrollment, and that's why that date was as it was. So it was and I believe that's what the union understood as well, that that's what they were looking for.
Sounds about right. Yeah. We can always follow up with the union to make sure that they're all on the same page too.
Certainly at the meeting, everybody was,
Right.
let's go, let's.
Especially if they're gonna, if they're gonna see a savings and we're gonna see a savings.
Let's do it.
Why
Right.
would we wait until
Exactly.
in the contract negotiations, we can come up with a side letter or an MOU of some sort that'll address that if we need to.
And we probably don't, because our insurance plans are not memorialized in the contract. It's just, there'll be insurance plans.
Right.
So we do have that freedom and that flexibility to change plans as we go. Yeah.
And then the last thing was, we disbanded the allergy committee. Have we evaluated that, or do we have any learnings from it? Again, just what's the precedent for when a committee dissolves? Is there any kind of exit interview?
Well, I think I should probably speak to that, since that was actually an administrative decision. I did not come to the board for that because I didn't have any understanding that that was a board committee. My understanding of the past of that committee was that it was born out of concerns that had come from some of our schools about allergy, how we were addressing student allergies, and that Ellen Carell had worked really hard with some of our parents who had those concerns. There were a lot of changes made in the schools, and in fact, some of the parents that had been on that committee have graduated out. This year, we've had a few concerns that have risen to the surface. Each time, we've addressed them right on the spot. And have gotten very positive feedback from parents about that in terms of how they were addressed. And then, so in my mind, this committee, again, it wasn't a board committee, it was something the superintendent was doing with parents, that it didn't necessarily serve a function any further. What does seem important to me is that we have a place for parents to get their questions answered and to get information. So I've asked Heather to spearhead that, and can you talk for just a moment about the plans moving forward?
Hello? Okay. I'm afraid I'll be too loud. I'm just starting to gather the group. We're calling it now the New Wellness Committee, or something around that, not necessarily calling it a committee. We don't know. But we want a sample of administrators and team members from around the district, including parents. So we kind of have a sizable sample, but yet not too big where it becomes unproductive. And our goal is to tie it in with our family university concept. So with the hope that we create something around the parenting angle and those kind of things in February, and start to target October as like a wellness evening around topics around health and wellness.
Which would include a section on...
Would definitely include a section on allergies. We talked through a lot of ideas. We didn't want necessarily an allergy night because we're not sure we would yield people who don't necessarily have a connection to allergies. So we wanted to make sure that we're looking at more of a selection of topics for health and wellness.
Christy, are you hearing that there's a need for an allergy committee to continue, or you just use that as an example of a recently disbanded committee?
I have not heard an overwhelming, concern about it. To me, the bigger issue is just how are we doing committees, and maybe that's something if I'm the rookie on the block and just, you all understand it and I don't, I'm happy to get that information privately, but I thought it might be good to have as part of our monitoring system if we are not gonna have committees continue on what we learned, what we want to implement for the next one, and then thinking about community engagement and recalibrating what that work is.
I see.
Anything else? Next is public comments again. Anybody? Closed session? All right, so I need a motion to go to closed session.
So moved.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Weedman.
You too.